a couple of.
They'll be seeing it in another couple of minutes, actually.
Sure.
Keep all the systems in use.
All of us are visible. Ma'am is visible, Caesar is visible. Thank you. Good afternoon to one and all.
Good afternoon.
I would like to start the program with the Ramaiah anthem. Ramaiah anthem. Good afternoon to one and all. On behalf of the management of Kokula Education Foundation, our Chief Executive, Shri B.S. Ramaprasad, our Chief of Finance, Shri G. Ramachandra, our Principal, Dr. A. Nagaratna, our Vice Principal, Shri B.S. Jayarama, I, Dr. Bindu Nambiar, Dean Management Studies, would like to welcome one and all present today. We welcome all our sister institutions, heads of departments, faculty members, and faculties of other institutions who are present today with us for this webinar. We are indeed happy to welcome our speaker for the day, Dr. Pawan Soni, who despite all his achievements is an apostle of humility and purpose. May I now welcome our principal, Dr. A. Nagaratna, to inaugurate the program by lighting the lamp. Ma'am. Close. Because end the song. Thank you, ma'am. I think the best way to start any event, especially in the Indian context, is by giving our homage to the gods above, a very genuine gesture of lighting the lamp. Now, it is with immense pleasure that I welcome our beacon of light, our guiding force, Shri B.S. Ramaprasad, CEO of Engineering and General Sciences, Gokula Education Foundation, to deliver the inaugural address. Sir, over to you, sir. Has to be unmuted. Sanjogita, sir has to be unmuted.
Good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of Gokula Education Foundation, I compliment each and every participating faculty members for having taken this initiative to be the part of this faculty development program in these unprecedented COVID times. I am aware it has been a huge challenge for all of you to teach, mentor our students on online platform, having so much of handicap in spite of, in terms of software as well as hardware and other facilities. However, I am also aware that many of you have acquitted yourself very well. It has been a very rich and rewarding learning experience for all of you on this new online platform. I'm sure this initiative which you have been taking for the last few months has spurred innovation and creativity in all of you. Gokula Education Foundation is alive to new challenges, and as a result of our new initiatives, this faculty development program titled Didactics for Online Teaching has been organized to equip the faculty with the necessary competencies and skills to very effectively develop the content, engage the students productively on this online platform, and also design the evaluation assessment tools, techniques for effective online teaching. This faculty development program we have organized today is a paid program. However, I am very happy to announce that GEF would be reimbursing that amount once the FDP is successfully completed and e-certificates have been issued. I'm also very happy to know that many of the faculty outside GEF fold, other institutions, are also taking part in this. We are very happy to collaborate in this collective endeavor to enhance the effectiveness of online teaching, which is the teaching learning is core of the knowledge sector. uh, I would like to, extend a very hearty welcome to each and every participating faculty, and I am very sure that uh, you will have a very rich and rewarding experience through this faculty development program. Thank you very much.
That's where our connection began, and we continue to be connected on the professional platform. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce our speaker, Dr. Pawan Soni, who is going to deliver his lecture on didactics for online teaching. This is a subject all of us are interested because the future is going to be towards new normal, and virtual classes are becoming popular and important in terms of delivery. Our speaker for today, Dr. Soni, is an innovation evangelist by profession and a professor by passion. He's a founder of Inflexon Point, offering design thinking, strategic equipment, and consulting skills. He's an adjunct faculty at International School of Business, Hyderabad, and Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. When it comes to organizations, he doesn't need a special mention. He's known for his engagements with tier 1 organizations, to name a few: 3M, Amazon, BCG, Deloitte, Samsung, Reliance, Tata, ITC, and Flipkart, and the list continues. Dr. Soni was shortlisted for the prestigious Financial Times and McKinsey Breakenbower Award for the Best Business Book of the Year 2016. He is award-winning professional who bagged the prestigious On the Job Achiever Award at Lakshya at NITIE, NITI Mumbai. He has been invited 5 times to speak at the TEDx. He's a gold medalist from MBM Engineering College, Jodhpur, and did his postgraduate diploma in industrial engineering from NITIE Mumbai. He finished his doctoral studies from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, in the area of innovation management. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming him. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that highly. So let me pull up my presentation very quickly, and then we'll go forward from there. So if you can hear me clearly, if you can just type a yes on the chat box so that we are in communication. If you can see my presentation and if you can hear me clearly, just type a yes. That's important. So what I'll take you through is how you typically engage in an online setup. And as Sir rightly said, that is going to be the future. And even if we all return to normalcy through a vaccination or through some sort of a miracle, if you will, even then, having an ability to reach out to an international audience remotely is going to be very, very important ability that you need to develop. So thank you very much for inviting me over this session. I would have loved to be in a physical setup with all of you, talking to you face to face, but even this is better because by this we can, number one, record the entire proceedings. Number two, nothing beats teaching online. So if I were to teach you how to conduct online classes, I need to come online and then I need to talk to you about some of those nuances. So I run this company called Inflection Point, and as Sir has already introduced me, so roughly about 10% or 15% of my time I devote to mentoring startups and teaching at educational institutions. And 80% of my time I spend in engaging with large organizations, again, online teaching. Now, till about January of this year, or maybe March of this year, almost 100% of all the courses which I did were all in-person, face-to-face courses. But after March, and our programs on design thinking, creativity are very intense programs where you have to sit down, do discussions, do brainstorming and things like that. But what has happened is that after March of 2020, a lot of the programs have to shift online. Initially, I was not sure if I'll be able to cope up with the stress that comes with this online engagement, if I'll be able to engage. But a couple of programs on, I've been receiving some very good feedback. People are able to participate a lot more. I can provide individual focus. So I would like you to look at it that while online education has some limitations as compared to physical education, online education also gives you some abilities as compared to physical education, which is sitting in a classroom. So a lot of positives are also there. And I would like to, in today's discussion, bring about those positives to the fore so that you can embrace it. What you need to understand is that as a teacher, you need to be a very, very good student. And nature has put us under this very important, very interesting condition that we need to survive. If you ever learned this phrase, survival of the fittest, this is the time to prove it. Darwin would have never been so right, except that if he was alive today. We are in that moment where the survival of the fittest is absolutely true. If you look at the morbidities which are leading to COVID positive cases, and then people who are getting admitted and the people who are, dying, a lot is to do with your immunity, which is again how fit you are. So fitness is not only in terms of physical fitness, but also in terms of intellectual fitness. And you as a teacher, you need to be really on top of the game, because teachers don't retire. Teachers don't retire. They continue to teach for as long as they live. And that's very, very critical, that you continue to change yourself, adapt yourself, and you should think of it as a normal, as a new normal, and think of it as an opportunity to learn something new. Many of you might be waiting for things to go normal, right? Maybe people are in this assumption that one more year and by the end of this year, everything will be normal. Who knows? Government declared that by mid of August, school should open. I don't see that happening by mid of August. We are all assuming that by the end of the year, things should be fine. What if things are not fine by the end of the year? Will you stop teaching? I don't think so. You'll stop teaching. You'll never stop teaching. You should never stop teaching. What you need to do is to teach yourself new ways of engagement. And this program will take you through some of those ways of engagement. And I was telling you that I'm learning it myself. I was never doing online programs, but these are some of the companies which I've had the sort of privilege and fortune to engage with. And in many of these organizations, we are now doing online programs. And the feedback that we are receiving is that these online programs are very, very effective, very effective. So please do not, for one thing, have this mindset very clear that online program is not a compromise. If you can do it fantastically well, then it can happen. Imagine watching a cricket match in stadium versus watching it at your home. Stadium always has some bit of benefits to it, but when you're sitting at the comfort of your home, you can watch it for long durations. Many times you can even pause a live cricket match. You can see the ball. You can see various types of nuances that you would obviously miss out in a stadium. Same thing applies to online learning. So in terms of the key takeaways, these are the things which I would broadly cover. I'll keep asking questions to all of you as we go along the session. I would request all of you to write in your answers on the chat box only, strictly no discussion, because when you're engaging with this, large online forums, class control is very, very important. You need to be really on top of the game, that you need to have a class control. So at the very beginning, I would like to make this very provocative statement. This might not go well with many of you, but that is something I strongly believe in as a teacher. And I would leave you with this statement. If you have disagreements with me, I'll be happy to take these disagreements towards the later end of the discussion. But here is a statement which I would like you to make. And my request, another request which I have for all of you, is that do not do any multitask. If you're paid for this program, if you showed up to this program, do not do any other thing. Take a notepad, take a pen, take notes. Even though we are recording this and these recordings will be shared with you, but nothing beats real-time online learning. If you will not be disciplined in this class, your students will not be disciplined in your class. So I'm just telling you how we need to instill a sense of discipline in your classrooms. We have more than 100 participants here. I'm not sure if your classes will have more than 100 students. So it's very, very important that you maintain a very, very high level of class control. So no multitasking, number one. open your notebooks, take down notes. And number 3, you would be asking me questions and responding to my questions only on the chat. Because if you start speaking, there'll be a lot of chaos. We might have an echo problem. And another beauty of writing down questions in the chat box is that when you write things on the chat box, there is a log. There is a natural log of all the questions that come up, and I can always go back, answer those questions. And if you have a question asked by already somebody, then you can maybe ask a different question. That's the reason why I always insist that we have a log. So here is my quote, and see if this makes sense to you. So in the space of leadership development, often the quote or often the saying is that there are no bad leaders, or rather, let me rephrase myself. The quote in leadership space is that there are no bad teams. There are only bad leaders. A team is never bad. Only leader is bad, or leader is good. If a leader is good, he or she will have a team that performs. And if the leader is bad, any good team that you may have, it will never ever be able to perform. So there are no bad teams, there are only bad leaders. Same thing applies to teaching. Same thing applies to teaching. And you can write in the chat box whether you agree with me or if you do not agree with me. And I would request all of you to take a stance. As a teacher, and now right now as a student, you need to take a stance. You can't always say maybe. It depends. The problem with the maybe and it depends is that it shows that you are hesitant to take a stance. It's okay if you're wrong, but at least you learn something. It's absolutely okay if you are wrong, but what is not okay if it is you are not decisive. So here is my quote for all of you. If the saying goes that only leaders are bad, teams are never bad, I can stretch this argument to education and say that there are only bad teachers. There are never bad students. That's the point which I want to make here. There are only bad teachers. There is never a bad student. And I have seen it, and all of you have seen it. We have seen that in our classroom, there are certain students who are so disturbed and so disturbing in certain lectures, but in some other lectures, they are so focused. And they are focused not because the subject is interesting, because the subject is made interesting by the teacher. So there's never a bad student. There is always a bad teacher. And the teacher's job is to ensure that the student is able to develop a genuine interest, a genuine sense of curiosity in that particular subject, and then the student is able to take it forward. So you as a teacher need to ensure that as much as the student has the responsibility of learning, more than that, you have the responsibility of teaching the student. Many people ask me this question that when students have so much of an access to the internet, YouTube videos are available, so many MOOCs, massive online open courseware are available, what value addition can a teacher have? I think because there is so much of a noise in the system, so many books, so many online materials, so many videos, podcasts, many things are for free. Because there is so much of noise in the system, you are even more important than ever before. You are important for two things. The first thing that you're important to do, that's important for you to do, is to develop a genuine sense of curiosity in the student. That's very critical. Develop a curiosity so that the student, he or she can herself go ahead and find out what is interesting. And the second thing is you have to help the person, help the student distill signal from the noise. There is so much of a data. There is so much of information available, but never ever confuse data or information with knowledge. Knowledge still remains the domain of teachers. So instead of feeling uneasy or instead of feeling sort of shortchanged because of so much of material available, you should now be able to embrace all of this together and show your lost student a direction. So there is never ever, and I completely maintain this, what I'm saying right now, there is never a bad student. There is always a bad teacher. And I don't want any one of us to be a bad teacher. Because at the end of the day, frankly speaking, we'll all get our salaries, we'll all get our promotions, we'll all get a pat on the back once in a while. But the biggest accolade that we can ever get is when a student calls you when she gets her first job, and the first phone call goes to you that, sir or ma'am, because of you, I got this job. When a student gets married and she says that, sir, ma'am, because of you, I'm able to establish myself in life. Or a person when they get promoted. And that's critical. Just a couple of days back, we had Doctor's Day. I did not even know there is something called Doctor's Day and what is the date on it is, celebrated, frankly. And people sent across these messages on social media declaring there is Doctor's Day. But nobody has to remind anybody else about Teacher's Day, isn't it? Teachers' Day is one such day which is celebrated throughout the year. I mean, throughout the year in a way, whenever a teacher and a student come together to create something marvelous. So I think you have a great responsibility. Instead of shying away from online education, instead of trying to wait for things to become normal, don't make that mistake. Things may not become normal. Things may not become normal. Will you die? No. Will you stop teaching? No. You have to change yourself. So with that pretext, these are the uh, sort of key takeaways which I would like us to have. The first thing is how to be an effective teacher in general and more specifically in terms of online education. I'll talk to you about 3 skills: the T of a teacher, listening with intent, generating curiosity, maintaining attention of your student and of yourself. How do you have a class control? For example, the very first things which I said in the class today itself is that no multitasking. You need to take down notes and you have to strictly communicate with me on the chat. It's very important that you establish these ground rules up front, because if the class goes out of control, it is your responsibility. The outcome of your class is completely your responsibility. Please bear this in mind. It is nobody else's responsibility. It's never the student's responsibility. It's never the administrator's responsibility. It's completely your responsibility. Whatever happens today in this class, it is completely my responsibility. It's not of anybody else's responsibility. And I just want to quote one very famous saying that comes from Ricky Ponting. Ricky Ponting, as many of you would be aware, was the captain of Australian cricket team for a very long time, and he bagged at least 2 World Cups for them. So when Ricky Ponting made this comment, and I read this comment in Harsha Bogle's book called The Winning Way. So what Ricky Ponting, and you can again write down in your chat box whether you agree with what Ricky Ponting said or if you do not agree with what he said. But as far as I go, I completely buy into what he said. So Ricky Ponting, even though he's a very loathed cricketer by many of Indians especially, but Ricky Ponting said that when I am a captain, every win and every loss goes against my name. Every win and every loss goes against my name because I'm the captain. Now, it doesn't matter what is the playing field like, who is the opponent, what is the weather condition, what is the playing 11, who is the coach, what is the relationship. Nothing matters. On the day of the match, if I'm the captain, the win or loss goes against my name. Buck stops with me. And same applies to you. You are the teacher. Buck stops with you. Nothing else. You can't blame anybody else. You have to blame yourself. So you have to spend a lot of time to prepare yourself. And if you think that online teaching is just about putting the same PPT online, you're wrong. It's not about putting the same PPT online. It requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of attention to detail. How do you engage your audience? If you put a PPT online and keep talking about it, your students would have long gone. Maybe for the sake of attendance, they might show up, but beyond that, they would not. The second thing is how do you design the content when you're delivering it online? How to deliver the content, and finally, how do you do evaluation of your students, both in the real time as well as after the session gets over? Let me start with my first question to all of you. Look at this photograph. Now, this is a teacher asking a question to a child, maybe in first standard or the kindergarten, maybe the first or second standard. The question goes like this. The question is, this cat is hungry. Help the cat reach the milk. Simple question. Okay. This cat is hungry. Help the cat reach the milk. And this is what the child does. The child takes a pencil, draws a straight line from the cat to the milk. Now answer this question to me, all of you. Do you think this is creative or not creative? Please write down in the chat box. It is creative or even not creative. Creative or not creative? Creative or not? Simple. I want everybody, all 100, whatever number we have here, 130, all 130 has to respond. If you don't respond, you should log out right now. Do something else with your time. If you're on this platform, you have to respond. There's nothing else that you can do. Is it creative or not creative? It's a very simple question. Binary, yes, no, yes, no. Creative or not creative? So all of you, almost everybody's saying it is creative. Now, the child had a stroke of creativity that, yeah, you know. Now, look at the teacher. The teacher had 2 choices that day. The teacher gave a star mark and a good marks to the child, saying that, yeah, good job done. The second choice the teacher had was to fail the child, saying that what nonsense. Can't you see that there is a maze given and the cat has to go through the maze to the milk? Can't you see? Which means as long as the child has to show creativity, the teacher has to encourage creativity. A child or a student can only be creative as long as the teacher encourages creativity. Now, what can a teacher learn from this example? What a teacher can learn from this example are two things. Number one, the question was wrong. The question was wrong because the question never said, if you look at the question again, the cat is hungry, help the cat reach the milk. That is a question, right? The question was wrong. The question never said that help the cat reach the milk through the maze. It never said, it never specified. So the child is absolutely correct in drawing this arrow. So the teacher has to learn. Many times teachers do not learn. They take it on their ego. What nonsense, can't you see? It's simple, there is a maze, you should have taken it. So the problem is not with the child, the problem is with the teacher. And I want you to develop the humility to understand that maybe there's a mistake with me. Maybe the way I framed the question is incorrect. Maybe the way I'm looking at the answer is so narrow because I think that's the only answer. So when you try to cultivate creativity in your students, in your children, as much as they are responsible to express creativity, you are responsible to encourage creativity. So what is creativity? A very simple definition of creativity is to connect the familiar in unfamiliar ways. You take the two things which are very well known to you, familiar, but the moment you connect them together, it becomes innovation because the connection is new. Let's look at post-it notes. All of you have seen post-it notes from 3M or the scotch tape or the cello tape. The cello tape is a great innovation. Plastic is known, adhesive is known, but the moment I put the plastic and adhesive together and it becomes a cello tape, that becomes innovative. Sandpaper, the first innovation that 3M came up with, sandpaper. Sand is known, paper is known. But the moment I put sand and paper together in some sort of an adhesive unit, the sandpaper becomes innovative. So innovation or creativity is about putting two things together. The two things are known, but the combination is very, very unique. And that is what you need to learn. So the point which I want to make here is that as a teacher, you need to take your child from knowledge to intelligence to creativity. That's the journey that we need to have. When I was growing up as a child, and I'm still growing up, and so are you, frankly speaking, when I was growing up as a child, a lot of the focus of our education was on knowledge, knowing. And as a result, we had these GK contests, general knowledge quiz, the longest river, the tallest mountain, right? The oldest person, the capital of various countries, the currency used. So we had to mug up all these things, and then a UN exam or a GK exam will happen, and we'll just sort of write those things down. Today, because of Google, they have no meaning. And few years from now, because of Google, even the spell bee contest where you have to memorize spellings, that I don't think will have any meaning. So knowledge is no longer the currency of success. When I was growing up, my dad always used to say, knowledge is power, time is money. And I'm sure all of you have heard this saying, knowledge is power and time is money. Well, I disagree with that. Knowledge is not power and time is not money. I'll tell you what. Application of knowledge is power. That is the power. Only when you apply knowledge, just because you know something, that doesn't mean anything. Unless and until you're able to apply that knowledge, the knowledge has no meaning. And time is not money. Attention is money. Imagine you have your students in your lecture. Are they giving their time to you? Absolutely. They're giving that 1 hour to you. But are they giving their attention to you? Not always. And as attention is money, time is not money. And never ever confuse between time and attention. Simple thing. You're driving a car. While you're spending all your time on the car, but may not be your attention is in driving. Your attention may be somewhere else. Your attention is on talking to somebody else. Attention may be about thinking about something else, coming up with an idea or thinking about the day. That's where your attention is. So time and attention are not the same. So knowledge is not power. Application of knowledge is power. So knowledge to intelligence. Now, here is my question to you. Do you think intelligence is same as creativity? Yes or no? Please write down on the chat box. Is knowledge same as creativity? I mean, intelligence and creativity, are they same? Are they different? They're different, right? They're different. Let me ask you a question. Very simple question. I'll type a sequence on the chat box, and you have to tell me what is coming next. Okay. So here is the sequence. I'm writing the sequence on the chat box. Take your time, read it, and tell me what is coming next. Here is the sequence. Okay, just fill in the next sequence. Here is the sequence. Okay, very quickly. The moment I write it down, you have to answer back to me. Here is the sequence. What is coming next in the same sequence? Right, 12, 14, etc. Okay, all right, stop writing. I'm giving you another sequence now. Okay, here's another sequence. What is coming next? Yeah. So I got three types of answers. Three types of answers I got. The first answer was 32. The second answer was 64. Third answer was 256. All three are correct. It can be 256 also. It can be 32 also. It can be 64 also. All three answers are absolutely correct. So now think about that. In the first question, there was only one right answer. In the second question, there were three right answers. Here's my next question to you. What's coming next? "21 is the wrong answer. 23 is the answer. That's right, 23 is the answer. What are these? These are, can somebody write down what was the sequence all about? Prime numbers. That's right. These are all prime numbers. Now here is when the things become slightly more interesting. Okay. Here is what I want to sort of write down for you. What is coming next? Seven, 9. 9, 11, 7, 9, 7, 9, 11. Now in this case, you are little bit slow and mostly wrong. 5, 9, 9, 9, 9, 11, 555, 7, 9. Think about that for a moment. Okay, if you can just pause, I'll take you again through all of these things. In the first sequence, you were absolutely correct, 12. In the second sequence, you had 3 answers. In the third sequence, there was a bit of noise in the system. In the fourth question, lot of noise in the system. Why? What was true in question number 1 and 2, which is missing in question number 4? What is there in question number 1 and 2 but is not present in question number 4? Why are you so fast in 1 and 2 and not so fast in question number? What is missing? Absolutely. Pattern. Dr. Sonali, pattern. Pattern is missing, right? So what is intelligence? In a very simple concept, in a very simple understanding, the meaning of intelligence is the ability of a human mind to find a pattern. That is intelligence. Pattern. If you can find a pattern, that is intelligence. Simple. So human mind is absolutely capable of pattern recognition, pattern matching, pattern creation. So pattern is what human beings are very good at, and that's the reason we find constellations. See, stars are standing in no particular pattern. They are standing in no particular sequence. They are, millions of light years away. But our mind starts looking at those random collection of stars, look at the objects on Earth, and start recognizing patterns. Here is my question to you. Okay, listen to the question very carefully and answer in 1 or 2 words. Only 1 or 2 words. Here is the question. I'm typing the question, read it and then answer. Here's the question. In the blank, 1 word. If intelligence is about creating pattern, creativity is about dash pattern. I got 2 right answers so far. 3 right answers. Only 3 right answers I have got so far. Only 3 right answers so far. Okay, Bindu ma'am, what is the answer you wrote? Can you please rewrite the answer? There's one more which we wrote.
What's the question? So out of that, which will be what's it is?
Don't want to.
It is not about, so the answer which I'm looking at, I got 3 right answers. Okay, here is the right answer. If intelligence is about finding or creating a pattern, creativity is about breaking the pattern. How do you break the pattern? Okay, breaking the pattern. You have to break the pattern. Only when you break the pattern, you are able to create new patterns. Now answer this thing to me. Is breaking a pattern, it's not decoding also. No, it's not about decoding, because decoding is again about pattern recognition. Okay, Vaishnavi, it's not about decoding. It's about breaking the pattern. You have to break the pattern. Okay. Now tell me, yes or no, if there is yes or no kind of a question. Do you think breaking a pattern is easy or difficult? Is it easy or difficult? Easy, difficult, breaking a pattern?
Difficult.
Yeah. Very difficult. Somebody still says it depends, but almost all the patterns are difficult. Difficult. And as you grow in your life, as you gain age, which many of you have, breaking a pattern is even more difficult. Okay, simple thing. Tomorrow morning, try brushing with your other hand. If you're a right-handed person, try brushing with the left hand. For such a simple task like brushing teeth, you can't change your pattern. Simple example, look at me. Okay, you all can see my video, I'm assuming. Take your hands straight like this. Hands, all of you, take your hands like this. Okay, all of you, please do that. Yes. Okay, and look at me here, hands like this, and fold your hands like this. All of you, fold your hands like this. Okay, and now check which hand is coming above. If you can't type when you are folding your hands.
Turn on the screen. Turn on the screen.
Okay, no need to turn your screens on. Don't worry about turning the screens on because it will choke your bandwidth. Don't worry. Look at which hand is coming above. Mine is right hand is coming above, or left hand is right. Left hand is coming above. Okay, so again fold and see which hand is coming above, right or left. So mine is left hand. Left is coming and right is below. Left is above. Okay. Now once again, open your hands like this. I'm not sure how can you fold your hand and still type the answer. So that is difficult for me to understand. But don't worry about that. Open your hands again like this. And this time fold your hands such that the other hand has to come up. So for example, in my case, the left hand was above. In this case, the right hand has to come above. So do it again. So my usual stance is this, but deliberately I'm doing the other way around. Okay, try doing it one more time. Do you think that this simple change, is it convenient or inconvenient? Does it take a bit of effort or it happens without any effort? It's inconvenient, right? It takes, so such a simple thing which has no utility whatsoever, folding your hands, takes effort. So breaking a pattern is very difficult. And if you have to make your child or your student break a pattern, imagine the amount of pattern breaking you have to do as a teacher. And thanks to coronavirus, you either break a pattern or you break yourself. The choice is very simple. So habits die hard, as they always say. Now, what is a teacher? There's a very critical understanding which I would like you to have about teacher. Teacher is a T. Okay, look at this T on the screen. Teacher has a depth of expertise. You need to have a subject matter knowledge. If I am not a subject matter expert on some topic, nobody will invite me. Especially for these sessions when there are so many teachers listening. If I'm not an expert on a topic, you will never ever invite me. Whoever I am, doesn't matter. You will just log out right now. So you need to have a lot of expertise. But what you also need to have is a lot of empathy. So T, the bar of the T is the empathy, the emotional involvement with your students. And the depth is the expertise. Very important. Now here is my question to you. Whenever you start a conversation, either online or in a physical setup, where should you start the conversation with? Should your starting point of conversation be empathy or should your starting point be expertise? Please write down. Where should you start, empathy or expertise? Almost everybody is saying empathy. Absolutely important. And empathy is even more important when you cannot see people's body language. Now I cannot see your body language. Am I right? I can't see any one of you. I'm just looking at my own video on the screen. And yet I'm trying to engage with 130 of you in an online medium. How am I able to do so? Because I need to develop a lot of empathy with my audience. And empathy is a very, very critical thing for all of you. A teacher without empathy is like a flower without smell. Nobody will go near that flower. A flower needs to have smell. A flower needs to have beauty. So a teacher needs to have humility. You need to have empathy. Empathy is very, very critical for all of you. Once you have the empathy, you attract people with your empathy and then you take them towards your expertise. Because when you talk about your expertise first up, it will intimidate your audience quickly. You don't even know this, let me teach you. Now, when you say you don't even know this, let me teach you, people will go on a defensive. No, I'm okay this way. Don't do that. See, a child or a student has no obligation to learn from you. The only obligation they have is to get a job. And for that, they need to get a marks. And for that, they need to sit in your class. That's it. You can never claim that if I do not teach this student, he will be destroyed. No. A lot of people who never went to schooling, they are doing fantastically well. There are many who college dropout and they're doing fantastically well. Right? Oh, somebody pointed out there is a spelling mistake on the screen. So let me correct that spelling mistake right away. Thank you for pointing that out. I really, really appreciate that. All right. Let me go back. Okay. Yes. Okay. Can you see the screen? Can I just have a quick yes or a no if you can see the screen? Now, look at this, and I'm really happy that it happened right now so that it allows me to again demonstrate a point to you. So I made a slide and I made a mistake in the slide. The spelling of empathy was wrong. There are two ways in which I could have reacted to this. When somebody wrote there is a mistake in my slide, one way was to ignore. What is the second way? Is to correct it. Correct it when? Then and there. And that is again, I mean my empathy. Empathy means that you are able to understand the emotional content of the other people and able to incorporate that. And that again requires you to be humble. All of us can make mistake. The mistake is not to make a mistake. The mistake is to not learn from your mistake. That is a bigger mistake. So empathy and expertise are the two aspects of life. So when you do a PhD, what do you develop when you do a PhD? You develop empathy or you develop expertise when you do a PhD. What do you develop when you do a PhD program? Empathy or expertise? Go ahead, you can type your answer. Generally, we develop expertise. When I was doing my PhD program, my advisor said that cut everything in your life, focus on this topic, go as deep as you can so that you get lost. And I got lost. And when I came out, I realized that I got so lost that the only way I can go ahead is to start reconnecting to the world again. So it develops both empathy and expertise. But my only recommendation to all of you, never ever let expertise come in the way of your empathy. You are a human being first, and you have to talk to other human beings, especially if somebody has to be inspired. And think about that even for a moment. Can you teach a child without inspiring the child? Is it possible to teach a child or teach a student without inspiring the student? Without motivating the student? And you can never motivate somebody who does not trust you. So the first thing as a teacher that you develop in your classroom is a trust. Now, I do not know anybody of you. I do not know anybody in the class right now. None of you I am aware of. But if I'm not able to build trust in you, you will never listen to me. You will not understand me. And the only way I can build trust in you is by behaving in the manner in which I want you to behave. That's the only way. And I read this quote somewhere that, please listen to it very carefully. The quote is, leading by setting example is best way to inspire somebody. Or rather, it said that leading by setting example is not the best way to inspire somebody. I'll repeat myself. Leading by setting example is not the best way to inspire somebody. The quote goes on saying that, in fact, it is the only way. It is the only way. The only way you can inspire somebody is by leading by setting example. So let me take you back to Daniel Goleman, the person who coined the term emotional intelligence. And if you can listen to the audio, please say yes, or else I'll pause the video and I'll do something else with it. Okay. This is about how to develop emotional intelligence as a teacher. Just say yes if you can listen to this audio of this particular video.
Emotional intelligence refers to how well we handle ourselves and our relationships. There are 4 domains: self-awareness, knowing what we're feeling, why we're feeling it, which is a basis of, for example, good intuition, good decision making. Also, it's a moral compass. The second part is self-management, which means handling your distressing emotions in an effective way so that they don't cripple you, they don't get in the way of what you're doing, and yet attuning them to them when you need to so that you learn what you must. Every emotion has a function. Also marshaling positive emotions, getting ourselves involved, enthused about what we're doing, aligning our actions with our passions. The third is empathy, knowing what someone else is feeling. And the fourth is putting that all together in skilled relationship. So that's what I mean by emotional intelligence. There are many definitions out there. The part of the brain, it turns out, that it supports emotional and social intelligence is actually the last circuitry of the brain to become anatomically mature. And because of neuroplasticity, the brain shapes itself according to repeated experiences. So my argument is, hey, we should be teaching kids regularly over time in a systematic way self-awareness, self-management, empathy, and social skill. And in fact, there are now enough programs, and they've been around enough in schools, that they're about to publish a huge meta-analysis looking at hundreds of schools and kids that had the program versus those that don't. And guess what? All antisocial behavior, disruption in class, violence in school, goes down 10%. Pro-social behavior, liking school, well-behaved, up 10%. Academic achievement scores, up 11%. So it really pays. Executive function, which is mediated by the prefrontal lobe, both helps you manage your emotions and helps you pay attention. So as kids learn these skills, they also learn basic learning skills. I think that the fact that that was an argument was one thing that caught people's attention. Then there was a little chapter on called Managing with Heart, which argued that leaders who were sons of a bitch were actually defeating the company's own mission. And I think that made a lot of people happy because they work for people like that. I don't know, some people gave it to other people because they thought they needed help in this domain. I'm sure there's a zillion reasons why people like the book. I know IQ has been going up for 100 years as children encounter a more sophisticated cognitive environment as they grow. I don't know that we're becoming more emotionally intelligent. I like to hope we would, but I think that the number of intergroup wars going on, the intergroup hatred going on, the levels of familial abuse, in other words, indicators of emotions out of control in dangerous ways, don't look that great, which is why I'm a very strong proponent of getting these social emotional learning programs in every school worldwide. You have to remember that emotional intelligence is a range of abilities: self-awareness, emotional self-management, empathy, social skills. Women tend to be better than men on average at empathy, particularly emotional empathy, sensing in the moment how the other person is feeling. And also it's at social skills, at keeping things feeling good between people and a group. Men, on the other hand, tend to be better on average at self-confidence, particularly in groups, and at managing distressing emotions. But what's very interesting is if you look at leaders who are in the top 10%, there's no difference between the men and the women on any of those variables. In other words, you have a whole human being. So I would say that on average, there probably are differences, men and women, in this domain of ability. But as people develop their skills, as people become more effective, they pick up strengths in areas that they need. I think that emotional intelligence is a universal, but it looks different in different places. Japan has a very rigid set of rules of social interaction, lots of subtleties. Americans typically blunder into the Japanese system, don't get what's going on. And, it's embarrassing, but they wouldn't recognize necessarily emotional intelligence in Japanese setting. Brazil is a very different culture. It's very outgoing, kind of like an Italian culture. And so it would look different there. But I think the fundamentals are the same.
Right. So can any one of you write down what are the four levels of emotional intelligence? The 4 levels that Daniel Goleman spoke about. If you remember from the video, he spoke about 4 levels of emotional intelligence. What are the 4 levels? You can just recollect from your memory and type it down. Just write in the same sentence, the 4 levels, same sentence. In the same sentence, you can put a comma and then write down in the same sentence. Self-awareness, self-management, empathy, and social. Fantastic, Guru Raj. That's the right answer. Self-awareness, self-management, empathy, and social skills. Only one person so far has written all 4 correctly. Very good. Bala. Fantastic. So the first is self-awareness. As a teacher, when you're engaging, don't get agitated. Don't get nervous. If you think you are getting nervous, you're getting agitated, just take a break. It's absolutely okay. Take a break, go slow. Second is self-management, controlling your emotions. The third aspect is the importance of empathizing, which is understanding others' emotions. And the fourth is social skills, managing the emotional state of others, calming people down. It's absolutely important. These are the 4 levels. Now, can you tell me, we have been with here for 1 hour now. We have been on this session for 1 hour. Can any one of you tell me how many slides we have covered in the last 1 hour? How many slides have I covered in last 1 hour? Again, you can write it down. Yeah. To be honest, let me tell you how many slides I have covered. 1, this is 1 slide. 2, 3, 4. 4 slides. I've covered 4 slides. 4 slides in 1 hour. That is the run rate. Look at the slides again. What do you see from these 4 slides? 4 slides and 1 video, right? 3 slides and 1 video. That's the 4 slides that we have. Now, what do you remember from these slides? What stands out about these slides? Let us understand the model of engagement, because I can give you a PPT about how to engage, but I would want to tell you the actual engagement so that you can learn what stands out about the PPT so far. 3 slides only, 3 slides and 1 video. What else stands out from the model of the presentation? Interaction, very good. Low on text, high on variety, extreme high on vocal content. Pictures, discussion, brief, more focus on what I'm saying. Examples, engagement, relevant examples, correct? Maintaining attention, engaging with the audience, even calling out the audience by their name. Picture, discussion, breaking the pattern. So here is the 5 things which I want you to make a note of. 5 things. All of you take down a notebook and make 5 things. The first thing is that keep your slides few and clean. Okay, point number 1. Few and clean. That's point number 1. Okay, so stop typing and start writing in your notebook. Point number 1 is keep your slides few and clean. Number 1, whenever you are making a presentation, either in the form of physical presentation or in form of a virtual presentation, a person can either read or listen to you. Both can never be done simultaneously. Either the person can read what is there on the slides or he or she can listen to you. Keep your slides with a minimal content and maximum speech. Because if the person has to read, then you can just email the slide deck and you can just shut up. No problem with that. Email, the person will read and prepare for the exam. That's not the objective. The slide is supporting you. You're not supporting the slide. Please understand. The slide is supporting you. So the second point which I have is that keep this in mind. Slide is supporting you. You are not supporting the slide. That's a point number 2. Okay. The third point which I want to make, always look in the camera. I'm continuously looking in the camera. I'm not looking anywhere else. Always look in the camera. It's very, very important. Continuously look in the camera. Okay. Number 4, whenever you go to a slide, encourage people to speak. Speak in the sense, type. Never speak, always type before you give your answer out. That's point number 4. Never give the answer, and that is called the Socratic style of teaching. And I'll come to that shortly, what is called Socratic style of teaching. And the last point is, after the video got over, what's the first thing I asked you? Summarize the video. So whenever you make a video or whenever you stop any presentation, always ask people to write a summary so that you understand that they understood. Now, can any one of you write the 5 points on the chat box on what I just said? 5 points on the chat box. I told you 5 things about online teaching. Please write down the 5 things on the chat box. In the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the same line, comma, you can write down. Okay, few and clean slides, very good. Second point, slides support us and not the other way around, very good. PPT should support you and not you should support the PPT. For the third point, look at the camera, nowhere else. Look straight into the camera, always. Very good. What else? Was the fourth point? Encourage people to type. Whenever you go to a slide, invite them. And what's the point number 5? Summarize. Write summary or invite people to summarize. Okay. These are the points which I would like you to. So now finally tell me, was it useful? Yes or no? Do you think it is useful? Yes or no? Whatever we discussed so far, yes, no, simple yes or no. Okay, good, right. Now, like any presentation, it has to be always well timed. So now we are at 15:05. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. A 5-minute break is very important so that people can, get a little relaxed. You can take a bio break, take a tea, coffee break, whatever you fancy. So I'll take a 5-minute break and I'll resume the session at sharp 5:15:10. So I'm writing it down so there is no ambiguity here. 15:10 hours. Okay, 15:10 hours. So stop typing, all of you. Take a break of 5 minutes and at 15:10 hours, we'll again start this session. Thank you. Okay, so I'm back in the session. And if all of you are back, just type a yes. If you're ready to start, just type a yes. Type a yes if you're good to start. Okay, nice. So breaks are important. Take breaks. There's just no point in trying to stretch yourself too much. Another important thing which I want to convey to all of you is the fact that whenever you are engaging in online session, keep a plain background. This avoids any distraction as much as possible. Have a clean background. Many people have this tendency of putting books and putting other materials behind. Avoid that because you don't want anything else to occupy your client's attention. So it's very, very important that you are absolutely on the top of the game when you are doing these sessions. Let's move on from here. Now, I was talking to you about how to engage a class, and you already learned a few tips on how to make your classes more engaging, etc. But more importantly, as a teacher, what you need to understand is how to develop your content. And for developing content, what is absolutely important is for you to understand a few very critical aspects. For example, the critical aspects which I would like you to
Emotional intelligence.
understand are these skills. The first skill is questioning skill. Questioning is not only for the students, but also for you. You need to ask questions as much as possible. The second is observation skills. You will never be able to bring new examples into your classroom unless and until you are able to observe phenomena from your real life. Suppose you are teaching law, or you're teaching physics, chemistry, biology, management, engineering. Take an example from the real life situation and bring that example to the classroom. And that can only happen not by reading books, but also by observing what's happening around you. Experiment. Experiment with the topics that you're introducing, the sequence of the topics that you're introducing in your class. And when all these things come together, you have to have this associating power. And when you have the associating power, that associative ability of yours will take you to become a better teacher. And when you develop a lot of curiosity in the kids. And what I always say is that as a teacher, you need to develop curiosity in the kids. For everything else, there is Google. Google can take care of all the deficiencies of a teacher, but what Google can never do and what a teacher can only do is to develop curiosity. Now, here is a question I have for you. Questioning, observing, experimenting, associating. Associating means connecting the dots. Can you take multiple things from multiple places and put all of them together? Associating skill. Now, what do you think out of these four elements, questioning, observing, experimenting, and associating? What, according to you, is your biggest strength? Just write down one biggest strength of yours. What is your biggest strength so far? Questioning, observing, experimenting, or associating? What's your biggest strength? You as an individual, what do you think is an area where you are absolutely great at? Very good. So a lot of you are saying associating is the skill. Couple of you are saying all three, more than one. Very good. All are important. And you cannot have a specific weakness that might be dangerous. But more important than these also is possibly the importance of listening. As a teacher, you need to be a very, very good listener. Not a good speaker, but a very good listener also. Listening to the statements, even though a lot of text is coming to me in a very high speed, I'm still able to listen. I'm still able to appreciate and engage with all of you. That is very, very critical. Let me kind of give you an example of listening. So this is what Stephen Covey very famously says or said. He says that most people do not listen with the intent to understand. He says most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Do you agree with this statement? Yes, no? You can just write on the chat. Do you agree? Are we all victim of this mindset that we want to just reply? right? Whenever somebody says something, just reply so that, and as a teacher, we feel, if you can't reply to a student's answer, you feel like you're not a teacher. You feel like every question needs to have an answer and that you need to know the answer. It's okay. And I have been teaching for a very, very long time now. I remember the first time I started teaching was when I was 15 years of age. So I've been teaching formally since 15 years of age. And what I have learned is that as a teacher, it is absolutely okay for you to say, I do not know the answer. If you genuinely do not know the answer, admit that I do not know the answer. But work on it to ensure that you find out the answer and you connect the answer back to the student. That's very, very important. Don't be pretentious. What you need to understand is that the students whom you're trying to teach are so smart. Okay, they're so intelligent that they can make out if you're goofing with them. They'll make it out. If you're bluffing with them, they'll make it out. And you will lose your trust, you will lose your reputation. I do not know is far better than trying to guess an answer and then making a fool out of yourself. So it's absolutely okay to say, it's a great question. I do not know the answer. What is very important, then you will also realize as we'll go along the journey today, and I have time till 4:30 p.m. me. And as you go along the journey, you would realize that whenever somebody asks you a question, this is what we need to learn to do. Good listening skills. So let me play a video for all of you. And this video will give you a very beautiful hack, a very beautiful shortcut, or a very beautiful practice that you can incorporate to be a very good listener. So please pay attention, because at the end of the video, once again, I'll ask you to summarize. Another thing that you might not have sort of realized is that, look at my body language. I'm exposing almost 1/3 of my body on this video to you, and I'm using my hand expressions, right? Very much. So this is another way in which you can bring your complete self to teaching. Don't just sit like this and just talk. Use your hands. They're very, very powerful. When you use your hands, use your facial expressions, eye movements, etc. These are the ways in which you can still bridge the gap between a physical teaching and a virtual teaching. Does it make sense to you? Use your hands very effectively. It's very, very important when you're teaching. Your facial expressions, your hand movements are very important when you're trying to communicate with your audience. So make this as your 6th point. You already wrote 5 points. Okay. Make this a 6th point also, that use your hands effectively when you're trying to convey something with your audience. Okay, let me roll the video for all of you. And then at the end of this video, I would want you to draw a summary for me.
We are losing our listening. We spend roughly 60% of our communication time listening, but we're not very good at it. We retain just 25% of what we hear. Now, not you, not this talk, but that is generally true. Let's define listening as making meaning from sound. It's a mental process, and it's a process of extraction. We use some pretty cool techniques to do this. One of them is pattern recognition. So in a cocktail party like this, if I say, David, Sarah, pay attention, some of you just sat up. We recognize patterns to distinguish noise from signal, and especially our name. Differencing is another technique. We are losing our listening. We spend roughly...
Okay, one quick comment here. Whenever a video is running, don't comment anything at all on the chat box. It is very distracting. Okay, so no comments, anything. Only when the video is over, then you're allowed to write a comment. Am I clear on that? No comment when the video is on, because when you write a comment, people get distracted to read that comment, and then they take attention away from the video. No comment till the video is over. Am I clear on that, guys? Don't now write yes. That will also count as a comment. So no comment till the video is over. I am replaying the video for all of you again. You can make comments in a notebook, not on the chat box.
We are losing our listening. We spend roughly 60% of our communication time listening, but we're not very good at it. We retain just 25% of what we hear. Now, not you, not this talk, but that is generally true. Let's define listening as making meaning from sound. It's a mental process, and it's a process of extraction. We use some pretty cool techniques to do this. One of them is pattern recognition. So in a cocktail party like this, if I say, David, Sarah, pay attention, some of you just sat up. We recognize patterns to distinguish noise from signal, and especially our name. Differencing is another technique we use. If I left this pink noise on for more than a couple of minutes, you would literally cease to hear it. We listen to differences, we discount sounds that remain the same. And then there is a whole range of filters. These filters take us from all sound down to what we pay attention to. Most people are entirely unconscious of these filters, but they actually create our reality in a way because they tell us what we're paying attention to right now. I'll give you one example of that. Intention is very important in sound, in listening. When I married my wife, I promised her that I would listen to her every day as if for the first time. Now that's something I fall short of on a daily basis. But it's a great intention to have in a relationship. But that's not all. Sound places us in space and in time. If you close your eyes right now in this room, you're aware of the size of the room from the reverberation and the bouncing of the sound off the surfaces. And you're aware of how many people are around you because of the micro noises you're receiving. And sound places us in time as well, because sound always has time embedded in it. In fact, I would suggest that our listening is the main way that we experience the flow of time from past to future. So, sonority is time and meaning, a great quote. I said at the beginning, we're losing our listening. Why did I say that? Well, there are a lot of reasons for this. First of all, we invented ways of recording. First writing, then audio recording, and now video recording as well. The premium on accurate and careful listening has simply disappeared. Secondly, the world is now so noisy, with this cacophony going on visually and auditorily, it's just hard to listen. It's tiring to listen. Many people take refuge in headphones, but they turn big public spaces like this, shared soundscapes, into millions of tiny little personal sound bubbles. In this scenario, nobody's listening to anybody. We're becoming impatient. We don't want oratory anymore, we want sound bites. And the art of conversation is being replaced, dangerously, I think, by personal broadcasting. I don't know how much listening there is in this conversation, which is sadly very common, especially in the UK. We're becoming desensitized. Our media have to scream at us with these kind of headlines in order to get our attention. And that means it's harder for us to pay attention to the quiet, the subtle, the understated. This is a serious problem that we're losing our listening. This is not trivial, because listening is our access to understanding. Conscious listening always creates understanding. And only without conscious listening can these things happen. A world where we don't listen to each other at all is a very scary place indeed. So I'd like to share with you 5 simple exercises, tools you can take away with you to improve your own conscious listening. Would you like that? Yes. Good. The first one is silence. Just 3 minutes a day of silence is a wonderful exercise to reset your ears and to recalibrate so that you can hear the quiet again. If you can't get absolute silence, go for quiet. That's absolutely fine. Second, I call this the mixer. So even if you're in a noisy environment like this, and we all spend a lot of time in places like this, listen in the coffee bar to how many channels of sound can I hear? How many individual channels in that mix am I listening to? You can do it in a beautiful place as well, like a lake. How many birds am I hearing? Where are they? Where are those ripples? It's a great exercise for improving the quality of your listening. Third, this exercise I call savoring, and this is a beautiful exercise. It's about enjoying mundane sounds. This, for example, is my tumble dryer. It's a waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I love it. Or just try this one on for size. So mundane sounds can be really interesting if you pay attention. I call that the hidden choir. It's around us all the time. The next exercise is probably the most important of all of these. If you just take one thing away, this is listening positions. The idea that you can move your listening position to what's appropriate to what you're listening to. This is playing with those filters. You remember I gave you those filters at the beginning? It's starting to play with them as levers, to get conscious about them and to move to different places. These are just some of the listening positions or scales of listening positions that you can use. There are many. Have fun with that. It's very exciting. And finally, an acronym. You can use this in listening, in communication. If you're in any one of those roles, and I think that probably is everybody who's listening to this talk. The acronym is RASA, which is the Sanskrit word for juice or essence. And RASA stands for receive, which means pay attention to the person, appreciate, making little noises like, oh, okay. Summarize, the word so is very important in communication, and ask questions afterwards.
So that is your presentation. Now you can summarize it. Okay, go ahead. What have you learned from this particular presentation? Go ahead, Nidhi, you can write now. Go ahead, guys. Conscious listening creates understanding. Very good. What else comes to your mind? RASA technique. And what does RASA stand for? Receive, appreciate, summarize. Very good. Reflective listening. Glad. Pattern recognition. Listening take efforts. Summarize. Work on ourselves to become better listeners. Conscious listening, receive. Lovely. The 5 exercises. Now, this is a summary. The RASA technique. Receive, appreciate, summarize, and ask. And I would like you to use the RASA technique in your life. Importance of silence also. Now tell me one thing. As a teacher, you can now pause typing and go to the next exercise. As a teacher, if I look at the RASA technique, which is receive, appreciate, summarize, and ask. What do you think is the most difficult thing for you to do? One. What is the most difficult out of RASA? What is the most difficult thing for you to do? Out of these 4, just type the answer. Receive, appreciate, ask, or summarize. What's the most difficult thing for you to do personally? So good number of you are saying receive. Ask is also coming up. So receive and ask are the 2 which are none. Okay. Very good. Encourage. So you asking questions, not students asking question, you asking question. So receive and ask are the 2 very, very critical things that you are. Now here is the point which I want to make to you about receive. So one of the rules that we have in receive, how to be a good receiver, is this simple rule which I want to offer to you and see if this makes sense to you. I call this as 1:5. The rule of 1:5. What is 1:5? 1:5 means that every 1 word that you speak, listen to 5 words. Every 1 minute that you talk, listen for 5 minutes. That's the 1:5 rule. Not 5 minutes you talk and 1 minute you listen. 1 minute you talk and 5 minutes you listen. As far as the ask is concerned, let me give you a hypothetical situation. Suppose Nidhi, one of our students today, suppose she came late to the class. And there are 2 ways in which I can ask a question. Question A, let me write the question and then you tell me which is the right way of asking the question. A. B. What is the right way to ask a question? A or B? A or B? Okay, a couple of you are saying A. Interesting. Most of you are saying B. Still a couple are saying A. Interesting. What is the right way of asking the question? You want to know why she is late. There's no doubt about that. But what is the better way of asking the question? A or B? That's my question. Aditi, you have to choose. You can't be both. What do you ask? A or B? Take a stance. It's okay to be wrong. So majority of you are saying B, and I think B is the right way also. While you want to go to A, but the moment you ask the question A, you are directly attacking the person and she'll become defensive. He or she will become defensive. When you want to know the root cause of the problem, try to ask the question B. So the worst that you can do to your student is to make your student defensive. Do not do that. Appreciate the student and understand the problem. So don't kill the messenger for the message. By asking the question A, we are killing the messenger. We are lacking empathy. Yeah, if A is asked with empathy, you have to paraphrase. So B is actually A asked with empathy. That is how the B has come. B is A plus empathy is B. You can quote it, but not sugarcoat it. You can rephrase it. And that's why I'm saying that asking a question as a teacher is very, very critical, because then you are able to encourage. So far we have spoken about the importance of, yeah, B is A plus empathy. That is what the whole idea is. Let us go to another important aspect of being a good teacher. Tone also matters, absolutely, Aditi, is the importance of generating curiosity. And this is what I meant by Socratic style of teaching. What you see in the photograph is Socrates, one of the earliest philosophers and teachers. The beauty about Socratic style of teaching is that you never ever, or let me ask you rather, why should I do it? So what is Socratic style of teaching? Can someone tell me what is Socrates' style of teaching? Go ahead. Yeah, he was a guru of Aristotle. What is Socrates' style of teaching? Show, not tell. Very good. Anupama, nice. Naga, do not know. Good. Is do not know the answer or is do not know the question? Cooperative. What is Socrates' style of teaching? Learning through experiments. Guiding through asking questions. Very good. That's a good. Somalata, that's a good answer. Stimulating thinking. Shashi. Nice. Moving from known to unknown. Teaching by asking questions. Engaging. Absolutely. Teaching by asking questions. Now here is what. So whenever you open a slide, don't jump to the answer that let me explain. Ask people what do they understand. Because many times your understanding of this slide and the audience understanding of the same slide can vary completely. And that is what in psychology is called a gestalt switch. A gestalt switch is a complete switch in the way you look at the whole picture. Here is what an example is. Look at this slide. And on the screen, tell me, what do you see? Okay, it's also called as a critical, developing critical way of thinking. That's how we have to think about that. Critical evaluation. Shankar, good one. Let me show some question to you on the screen, and you have to write on the chat box. All of you have to write on the chat box, what do you see? Instantly. Look at it instantly. You have to write on the chat box, what do you see? Okay, are you all ready, guys? Hope we are all ready. You can just say yes if you're ready, and then I'll show the image to you. And the moment you look at the image, you have to tell on the chat box, what do you see? Explain, what do you see? Okay. All right. Okay. Let me go to this slide. What do you see? Write down. Okay, write down. Please write down. This is one of the most famous photographs in psychology. This is to kind of explain the Gestalt switch, and I'm just reading the comment, and you should also read the comment. So there are predominantly two types of views which are coming in here. For those who have gone through the exercise, they know the puzzle very well. But there are two types of views which are coming in. One is an old lady, and second is a new lady or a young lady. Now the puzzle breaks down like this. So if you look at the first image, if you look from the perspective of the first image, you will see the young lady. But if you look at from the perspective of the second image, you will actually see in the same photograph, you will see the old lady. Now, when you start a discussion in your classroom, maybe you are looking at the photograph or that puzzle or that perspective from a very narrow view, your own view, which you have been trained to look at it. But the student of yours can look at the same puzzle or the same question from a completely different angle. And that is where you need to allow for alternate explanations, alternate interpretations. And many of you are in social sciences. You are not in physical sciences. You are not NA plus CL is equal to NSCL type of a discussion. You are in social sciences. If management is social science, it's not physical sciences. And in social sciences, a lot of learning happens through interpretation and reinterpretation. And that is very, very critical, that you allow things to get interpreted in the ways in which it has to be allowed, and be open to interpretation, because you have to also learn at the end of the day. Let's move on. How do you design a content? Few very important tips to design a content are these. Number one, keep the slides clean. As much as possible, only one message per slide. So please make a note of that. One message per slide. A slide should have only one message. Don't have too many messages. One message per slide. Number two, leave a lot of room for interpretation and curiosity. Interpretation, misinterpretation, alternate interpretation is very critical. Embed short videos. A video of about 4 minutes is a good enough duration, not more than 4 minutes. And the video has to be so strategically placed that the video should be there only if you cannot convey the same point. Only then. I could not have conveyed the point that Daniel Goleman conveyed, because he was very succinct and he's Daniel Goleman after all. I couldn't have conveyed the same point that Julian Treasure, who introduced us to the Rasa technique, conveyed. So use a video very strategically. 4 minutes is the maximum length of the video. Place it at the right moment. Summarize the video. Use images generously. You have a lot of generosity when you're using image, because image attracts the audience. Even if they forget the content, they might remember the image. Talk about practical applications of concepts. It's very important. Look around yourself. If I have to look at the motivation theory, then look at application of motivation theory to motivate people to maintain social distancing or to motivate people to wear a mask. If I have to talk about, say time and motion study, I can use the concept of time and motion study to give a simple exercise at home, that if you go do an exercise in parallel versus an exercise sequentially, how the time matters. Focus on depth versus breadth. You can never ever achieve breadth, because whatever subject you are trying to teach, it is infinite in its expanse, infinite. So don't even claim that I have taught you everything. It's a false claim to make. Focus on the depth. Focus on narrow, very deep. And for everything else, once you generate the curiosity in the child will on her own or his own learn things. So when you're trying to design the course, design the content, narrow it down. Even now, with almost, we are here with each other for almost 1.5 hours now. Still, I have focused on very specific things, very, very narrow content, but trying to do a treatment which is in a lot of depth. And that is where the content design plays a very, very important role. So once again, keep the slides clean. The ratio is the ratio of slides that could be, you can have 1 hour and roughly 6 slides. That's it. 4-minute video. I'm just writing it down so that you can make a note. 4-minute video max. Okay. 1 video for 5 slides. That's the ratio. Okay. Images should be used very generously. Concept. Every concept should have a slide example. Don't give a concept without example. It's very important that a concept should have an example, because even if the person does not remember the concept, by the virtue of remembering the example, he or she will be able to learn and will be able to come back. And focusing on depth is very important. So go narrow and deep, and not shallow and wide. This is very important. Go narrow and deep and not shallow and wide. Many times faculty want to give too much to the student. Nobody remembers. See, you are teaching it, so you are passionate about it. But for the students, another subject. They don't care about it. So don't try to overwhelm the audience by giving so much information that the guy says he musse nahi hoga. Don't do that. Attract. Don't push. Pull. So this is in terms of concept design. The PPT is a concept design for all of you. When you are engaging the audience online, these are some of the things which some of them I already told you. Look into the camera, have a white plain background like this one. Use the power of pause. It's not necessary for you to talk all the time. There are moments in which you can just pause. Allow your audience to think. Allow your audience to ask questions. All videos should be off. Only my video should be on, so that we can conserve bandwidth. We can avoid distraction. The biggest distraction that you have to avoid is of yourself. You cannot afford to distract yourself. Be completely focused on what you're here to do. Every class starts with a 15-minute revision of the previous class. Whenever you start a new class, go back to the previous class, have 15-minute revision. How do you do revise it? Let me tell you how I'll revise it. Simply, okay? So this is how we'll revise it. Suppose I have to revise my class. Suppose I start my new class and I have to revise this class. Okay. Now what I do is I start my class and I ask my audience. Let me ask somebody in the audience. Okay. And this is how I do it in my class. So I'm starting a new class and I want to revise my previous class, and I'll ask, okay, Anita, can you explain this slide to me, please? Anita, can you please unmute yourself and explain me this slide? Is it possible to unmute yourself? Or you can, okay, I'll allow you to talk. I think that is, so where is Anita in this? Anita Singh. All right, I'm allowing you to talk. Okay, Anita, please speak, summarize the slide for me. Anita, I've unmuted you. Please speak and summarize this slide. Okay, can you speak? Is it possible for you to speak? See if you can. I've unmuted you. Okay, so this is how I've asked a very specific person to summarize the slide. So now let me go on and okay, Shankar, can you explain this slide to all of us, please? You can type, or I'll see if I can unmute you. In the meanwhile, yeah, here we are. Allowed to talk. Okay.
So that we can connect the audience.
Very good. Can you speak again, please, Shankar?
Emotional intelligence should be in such a way that we should connect with the audience.
Okay, explain what Daniel Goleman spoke. You remember that? Anybody wants to explain what Daniel Goleman spoke about, the 4 levels? You can just say yes, me.
Daniel Goleman spoke on what?
Go ahead, please. Okay, Nidhi, give it a shot.
No.
Let me unmute Nidhi. Hold on, Shankar. Let me give Nidhi a chance.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when you do this, all the audience will be on their toes. Everybody will be on their toes. Let me, okay, hold on, Nidhi.
Oh, sir.
Let me first unmute Shankar. Where is Shankar in this? Okay, maybe at the top. Yeah, here. Go.
Yes, sir. He spoke on self-awareness, social skills,
Okay.
empathy,
Okay.
and
All
management.
right. Very good. Very good. Okay, let me give Nidhi a chance to speak. Nidhi Arora. Okay, Nidhi, you can talk now. Oops. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, please.
Yes, yeah. So it is self-awareness, self-management, empathy, and social intelligence. Sir.
Very good. Very good. Good. Now, so this is how I want every time you start a class, go back to all the slides of a previous class. Don't worry, because revision is the best way to teach anything. Don't worry about every time you have to cover 20 slides or maybe 60 slides. Don't worry about that. Revision is very important at any age. The more you revise, the more ingrained will be the concepts. And pick names randomly so that everybody is on the toes and everybody is able to. So this is important for you to sort of ensure that people are revising. Every slide should be revised. Okay, let's move on. 15 minutes revision. Take a break every 45 minutes or 1 hour. Summarize, summarize, summarize. Nothing beats summary, guys. Summary is very, very important for all of you to keep in mind. I was just showing a video about how I engage, but since you have already seen me, I can skip this piece, but you have seen, this is the video which I have. This is a very fascinating all of you to watch it. Finally, I come to the element of student engagement. Very critical to have a very, very high level of control in the class. Declare clearly that you can't do any multitask, you can't type when the video is on. You invite people to give their comments and specific things at specific times. Identify everybody by name. What I did is that I called you by your name. When I call you by your name, you feel appreciated. You feel that, yeah, right, I'm getting involved. It's very, very important to call people by name. Identify them by name so they're alert, they're responsive. Okay, you can call people and ask them to explain the slide, which is what I did with Shankar and Nidhi. You can pick names randomly. Appreciate every question. So now I'll come to your questions shortly, but you learn that how to appreciate the questions. Encourage participations, and at every end of every single class, and that's something I'll do, is that I'll ask you to take personal takeaways. So this is what you need to do in terms of student engagement. Finally, before I take on the questions, finally what I want you to understand is the importance of evaluation. The best way to evaluate somebody is in the real time. You ask class participation, you have a notepad or an Excel sheet open, and you keep writing down the marks against every single name. This is what the person spoke in the class, how the person responded to your questions. You have to give the marks in real time. That's very, very important. You can design assignments, not basis memory. And lastly, do not shy away from sharing your content. It's absolutely okay to share the content. Anyways, whatever content you created, you have gathered from somewhere. We never create anything original. We only edit. We are not creators. We are all editors. Please understand that. And that's what, Michelangelo very famously said that only God creates, we all copy. And I completely agree. Only God has created, we all are copying with each other. So whatever you have copied, just pass it on so that somebody else can copy and mash it up. So we are all copy pasting stuff. So don't worry about sharing your content. When you share your content, you become higher than your audience and not lower than your audience. Please understand that. So be liberal in sharing your content. If they want to repeat, if they want to use it in whichever form and fashion, it frankly should not matter to all of you. So evaluation is best done in the real-time basis. So what is the summary, guys? In summary, it's a great season and a reason to learn new skills. Reinvent your content, reinvent your style. Inspire, don't perspire. Inspire your audience, don't just sweat them out. Tease before you teach. You need to tease them, excite them about the objective of learning, and then teaching can happen automatically. Develop curiosity, and the rest can be followed with self-learning. Back theory with relevant practices, and engage through stories. Stories and narratives are very powerful ways in which you can engage with your audience. So as far as my PPT is concerned, it is over. Very importantly, never ever overshoot time. Many times we have this tendency of making too many slides and overshooting the time. Don't do that. Nobody will ever punish you if you close the presentation before time, but people will be very mad at you if you do not close presentation on time. So I am closing my presentation right now. I have about 10-15 minutes with me, 15 minutes with me. And in those 15 minutes, I would like to do two things. The first is I would like to take a few questions from you. Okay. And then what you can do is I would want each one of you to summarize the key takeaway from this particular session. So my presentation is over, guys. What you can do is you can all make a note of my email address. So you can write an email to me, and you can always reach out to me whenever you wish to. So here is my email address, which is pawan.soni@inflectionpoint.net. So now we can take questions. So what you can do is you can type in your question in the chat box. I'll take 5 questions. Okay. We'll have time for only 5 questions. So I'll take 5 questions, and then you can summarize your own takeaways from this session. Please write your questions. No speaking on the chat. Please write the questions only.
Dr. Pawan?
Yes.
This is Prakash Nimbalkar here. Can I just make a small announcement before the question answer session begin?
Yes, please.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, you can make the announcement. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good evening to all. This is Prakash Nimbalkar here from Department of Management Studies, Ramaiah College of Arts, Science and Commerce. A very big thank you to Dr. Pawan Soni for the excellent session.
Thank you, sir.
I also thank each one of you for enrolling to the program in spite of the hitches and challenges you faced in paying the participation fee online. I'm here to announce the process for procuring your e-certificate, and please listen to it and kindly follow the same. First, each participant will get an email with an assessment form. Point number 2, without ignoring any questions, fill it the form completely, answer all the questions which are there in the field. On receiving the assessment form, we will send the yield certificate to your email ID. We have to receive your completely filled up assessment form, and then we'll send you e-certificate to your email ID. The gateway to send your assessment form will be open until 4 p.m. on July 5th, 2020. So these are the small announcements, and please be careful. All of you attended the FTP. Please send the assessment form, and we will be sending you the e-certificate. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Pawan, once again.
No worries, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, so as I requested, let us take 5 questions. So the first question is already there from Shankar. Shankar says, how do we teachers make students to understand about importance of education, the modern day kids? Kids are always modern day. When you were growing up, we were also modern day for our parents and our teachers. As I said, that you need to develop a lot of curiosity in the students and show them the big picture. So what I do with my students is that connect everything that I'm trying to teach them to some practical examples and practical tips. It's very important. Nobody's interested in concepts and gyan. People are interested in understanding that if I learn this, how am I able to apply? So you have to read enormously. Read outside your course books, outside your subject matter. Read voraciously and develop this horizontal thing about the T, which is a perspective and empathy. And once you develop that aspect, then you will be able to do a lot in terms of understanding how do we create that curiosity in the kids. So that's the only way you can develop that. Be a good reader. That is something I really want to overemphasize today. Many of us do not spend so much time in reading beyond our coursework. Read a lot, because when you read a lot about non-fiction and even fiction for that matter, when you read a lot, you get a lot of perspective and examples, and that is what you can bring to your class. Engage them through stories. Education always happens by the way. Okay, and when you keep it by the way, people will be able to appreciate it far better. Okay, how do we hold 100% of them? You can never hold 100% of them. You need a lot of practice to do so. But even if you can hold 60 to 70% of them, that's a good starting point. And over a period of time, you will be able to develop that empathetic connect with the students through the assignment, through the question and answers. And that's how possibly you will be able to understand their psychology and sort of adapt your questions accordingly. Okay. So Rangegoda has asked, how do you deal with overactive students? You need to have a lot of high class control. Limit their questions, limit their participation, be strict. I think being strict is very important instead of getting carried away by the people and their questions. So that's one way in which you can control them. Okay.
I have a question. Can I ask you one or two questions?
Sure, ma'am. Go ahead.
One question was from Sindhuja, which I've already typed and sent in there. Was the spelling mistake intentional? And she wanted to know if it was to check the commitment level or so.
No, it was not intentional.
Okay. Okay, fine.
But it turned out to be good. It turned out to be very interesting.
Of course. Yeah. I have a question to ask.
Yes.
Even certain Ivy League colleges have not acknowledged creativity. This is very well documented in the Facebook biopic and stuff like that. So do you have an instrument or some indication to measure creativity from, I don't know the other word, absurdity or as you said, a dream? In your other lecture, you were saying that it is just a dream. So how do you differentiate between these two things? Valid, good creative thinking, a creative idea, vis-a-vis a dreamy thing.
So what is creativity? So creativity has two qualifiers to it. One is utility, second is novelty. Now a dreamy idea will obviously have a lot of novelty, but what it will lack is utility. So I think if we can push our people who are coming up with ideas, they can be faculty members, they can be students, those who are coming with ideas, if you can push them to prove that the idea works, then only you can qualify the person to be creative. Otherwise, a person is a certified daydreamer.
Okay, so it is the onus is on
Absolutely,
him.
on the person. To prove that you are creative has to be the person's responsibility, not somebody else's.
That's a very good answer. Yes. Another very important thing which I have time and again felt that I'm not able to induce in the Indian system is, how do I make a student the owner of his learning process? They automatically do it when they go abroad, but how is it that, I mean, for some reason they are not doing it? How do I make the student the owner of the learning process? I mean, I am just a person who's mentoring the system or trying to be a coach, a guide, but how will they take the ownership of getting focus, of having that that zeal and knowledge, learning, ownership?
It's a very good question. It's a very good question. So it's a very systemic intervention which is required. One of the very fundamental difference between our way of education and our way of living and the Western way of living is individualism. They're highly individualistic people. Right from the moment a child is born, the child is put in a different cot, often in a different room. The parents just say good night and then they go out. In India, the child sleeps with parents till he gets married. That's the state of affair that we have. And even after marriage, the parents do not shy away from feeding the child. So we never develop that sense of ownership as a system. In the West, the child has to do small chores like tossing patties at McDonald's or filling stations or the $1 shops and then earn the livelihood. That brings a lot of self-worth and a brute sense of individualism in the child. So I think it is very difficult for us to expect them to behave the way Westerners have. And of course, they also have a big problem in terms of the fabric of society getting fragmented. But I think back home in India, what we need to show the students always is the big picture. We often give them some very specific treatment that if you study this, you will get this close to the exam, you will pass exam, and then you will get a job, etc., etc. But if you do not show them the big picture or the purpose, it's our responsibility. So as a teacher and as a parent, we need to continue to give them the sense of big picture. And the big picture can never be anything except contribution. So it's a very long answer because there is no one treatment which we can have. But if we can at all move the needle, it has to be in the direction of showing them the big picture. And the teachers can play a very, very important role, provided the teacher themselves have a big picture. That's important. They need to have a big picture that why am I teaching? Am I teaching just to make my ends meet, or am I teaching to create the future of this country? That is a very important question, because I'm clear. The reason I'm on this webinar today is very clearly that I want to influence teachers whom I have never met, whom I may never meet again. But if I can influence out of 130 people, even one person, my time spent is worth it. So my purpose is very clear.
Before you take the questions in the chat, one more question from my end, which is passed on. Even I have felt this very strongly. All the ACE people, people who are in the TED, speeches and whatever. These people tell things differently. For example, even the listening skill that you had just put in now. More than the idea being very new, it's the phrases, the projecting it differently, the internalization and the exhibition of the content, if I should quote these two things. Internalization, and because of that, there is a level of sophistication in the rendering itself. So how is there a mechanism to get that? Sometimes it comes, sometimes for certain things it doesn't come so effectively.
So I have been at 5 TEDx talks. And what I can, from my first TEDx talk, all of them are available on YouTube right now. And when I look at my own TEDx talks,
right,
what stands out very clearly, my first TEDx talk was in the year 2008. And my recent TEDx talk was last year, 2019. So in the last 11 years of my talks, there is a very fundamental shift which I have had. The fundamental shift is in the amount of preparation which I do. I used to somehow have this chutzpah or this overconfidence as a youngster that I'll go and I'll rock the show, and and now I'm getting more and more sober and trying to understand that if I have to really go out and do a fantastic performance, I have to really rehearse a lot. That is one. The second thing is, whoever a speaker is admirable, they believe in what they're saying 100%. They implement it in their life, and that's where a lot of conviction comes in their communication. So if I'm trying to advocate something in my talk, whatever I'm trying to advocate today in my talk, I can run a PPT, but if I do not believe in it, you will never trust me. And in the big stage, in the TEDx stage or TED stage, all these convictions come out very, very strongly and very clearly. So I think what really matters a lot is internalizing it, first of all, applying it, only then speaking it out, and secondly, practicing it a hell lot. Practicing it in front of audience. Like since March, 15th of March, you will not believe, I have been doing a webinar every alternate day. Since March 15th, every alternate day I've been doing a webinar on Zoom or Skype or some other network. And many of these slides have got so sort of refined, these questions have gotten so refined that now they are almost coming out smoothly. But it was never the case before. So overconfidence can be very detrimental to good speaking. And as teachers, we need to really check our overconfidence error. We often have this tendency of rocking the students with our content, our presentation style. It doesn't happen that way. Even in my presentation today, there was a spelling mistake. Think about that, right? So all this can happen. So we need to have a dose of humility plus a lot of practice. And that's how you internalize it. And when you internalize it, you don't have to be pretentious. And when you don't become pretentious, only then people believe in what you're saying. Otherwise, they don't believe in what you're saying. So that's my answer.
Okay, fine. And do you want to take on any of these questions which are there in the thing? Otherwise, I have a couple of other questions. because since you asked them to key in the questions, so you can just check in there and then.
Okay, let me. So what you can do, ma'am, is that since you can read all the questions, you can pick the questions and ask me those questions. That might be more. The ones which you're thinking are the most relevant, or one of your colleagues can pick the question.
Okay, fine. I think.
So that I can respond to your question, and one of your other colleagues can pick 5 questions.
Okay, fine.
Right? And then we can
while
ask.
It is getting to the process, we'll just in the meantime. Okay. This is one of the questions which we were discussing. How to make students who are not interested get involved. Now, next is the very important thing. Considering the class strength of 80 plus, and considering that they have 800 plus page of concepts that has to be driven by the end of the semester. These two are the riders. I mean, so, because not all universities have this luxury of having their own content and getting deep and stuff like that. So these two are the variables that wouldn't change. 800 plus concept driven pages that need to be completed, and number 2, 80 plus strength. So with these two, if we can have a balance between getting students involvement, then we would really go about implementing it.
So for the 800 pages, I think the teacher has to be really creative in trying to prune it down, because 800 pages even for a teacher is inhuman. Let alone teach.
They do 800 into 7 subjects.
Yeah, that's really inhuman. So I think a lot of creativity has to happen, as I said, in terms of content digestion. You have to create those small models where you can put many of these concepts together in some sort of a mind map. For example, mind mapping is a very powerful method for you to understand the concepts and even teach the concepts. So all of you, please make a note of this powerful technique called mind mapping. And you can check out the video by Tony Buzan to understand what is mind mapping and how you can use it. 80 strength, usually if there is at all a mechanism of breaking the strength down into 40 batches, that is an ideal situation which you can run. But even then in 80, you need to really have a tremendous amount of class control. Like when I take lectures, the highest lecture strength that I have taken ever is 720. So that's the highest I have gone to, but in that I strictly have me, a moderator, and the students. So I think a moderator and a teacher duo can do a far better justice, where the moderator, if they are teaching assistant or some model like that, where the person can pick up the questions, quiz the students while the teacher is teaching. So the cognitive load on the teacher can come down a bit. That can be interesting model to explore. So you have to have an intermediary person in between. So that might be useful. And for 800 pages, I think the teacher need to re-innovate, put them in some sort of a schematic or a mind map.
No, mind map
Otherwise,
is a good, yeah,
prehistoric.
Right. There's a very interesting question from Bal Subramaniam. You are seeking feedback and summarization from students, but summary may not always be a content or a quotient of the understanding. So he wants to know, I want to know how to work it on online model, and how can this be done from, you understand the question, right? He says summarization not equivalent to understanding, and especially on the online mode, how do you know that they really understand what is being taught?
So one way to know that they have understood is when you do the revision, you call out their names and ask them to explain the slide which you had done previously. So that is one way in which they will be forced to recollect. And between having no summary at all and having some summary, I think having some summary still pushes them to sort of make some sense out of it. So I would not be, like in today's class also, At the end of the class, I will want all 130 of you to write one statement summary of what you have learned in today's session, what you will apply in your life. So you need to close the loop every day. Teach, ask them to summarize. Next morning, summarize, teach, ask them to summarize. So this rhythm, once you start setting in, people will automatically get alerted that maybe next time my name will be called up. So I better take notes. So that's how you create the pressure in the audience. It doesn't happen in one day. It has to happen consistently. And as a practice you need to develop.
Okay. So there's another question from Shankar ji, almost the same, in the same pattern. How do we teachers make students understand the importance of modern day education? So
I guess I answered that question. It's by showing the big picture and curiosity.
Right. So I would want Nupur to take over to summarize the question answers and the entire session. We are starting to follow what you had taught right from now. So we are summarizing your session, and then we'll also the question and answer and the insights that we have gotten, and Nupur will do that.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Dr. Pavan.
Good afternoon. You can speak up a bit. Your voice is a little feeble. You have to speak up. No, you got muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, this is better now. Yes. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Dr. Pavan Soni and all our fellow participants here. So I can't thank you enough. So this has been a really pertinent and wonderful session which you have delivered. And I'm sure like you have bridged the gaps. All of us teachers have been left in the lurch thinking about how do we handle this situation. Yeah. So you have really answered quite a lot of questions here. So I have been picked up for summarizing, so which is like closing the ring, as you call it. So I'll start with Julian Treasure's Rasa technique, as you had spoken of. So we have already done the R, A, and the last A. So I'll start with the S. So it was really wonderful that there were certain things, and very pertinently you had mentioned that it is actually a situation of survival of the fittest. Right. So, and situations are changing. We have to adapt ourselves. Many of us here maybe are thinking that things would change, things would again come back to normal. But I think this session has kind of given us an acceptance that maybe this is the new norm. So maybe we have to adapt ourselves to this new norm. And the new norm is not really not really bad. So it's not really a compromise. It actually brings up various new opportunities, maybe challenges as well, but definitely new opportunities for us. So thanks for bringing it forth in front of us, and thanks for holding that in front of us. And yes, thanks for reiterating once again that yes, there are no bad students, it's only bad teachers. Right? So I think it'll drive home a point to all of us. You know, it's been difficult engaging with students on an online platform. You know, we have felt dejected at times because these are new things which has crept in. You know, but yes, I think time and again we have to remind ourselves that no, the buck stops at us. So we are as good our classes. So these another very important thing which has stuck with me is maybe we need to learn to unlearn certain things. You know, so that's also, you know, one key takeaway from your session which I'm taking. So it's driving interest, genuine interest in the students is very important. And I think the T's of the teacher also mentioned that. I think we have been driving expertise on the front end, so on. But I think, you know, we have to make a kind of reversal there and drive empathy, you know, as the forerunner, basically. So, and thanks for letting us know that, you know, as per Daniel Goldman, we have our top leaders who are equally balanced in our EQ as well as our IQ level. So that's something new I came to know, and I'm sure many of us here. Thanks for also mentioning the 5 elements. I think we've already summarized, all of us have summarized that, so I'll not go into summarizing that once again. The content design topics have been really pertinent. I'm sure that's going to be really helpful for all of us. All of us here have been taking notes on that, and I'm sure all our other participants also have been doing that. And I think I'll end the summary with Stephen Covey, where he's mentioned that most of the people listen with not with the intent to understand, but with the intent to reply. And I think it's true for us teachers as well. And no better way to end it than the great Greek philosopher Socrates, who's mentioned that it's let's appreciate the difference in perspectives. Let's be more open as teachers, more empathetic, and accept differences in perspectives. Thank you once again. Thanks a lot. And I would like to hand over the session to Dean for the vote of
Yes, one before we close, again, as a ritual, I would request all the participants, everybody on this session, to write a one-line summary of what is that one thing that you will apply in your life. Don't summarize the session. Make a commitment to yourself and to me that what is that today you have learned that you will apply in your life. Before we pass it on to Dean sir, all of you, one-line statement of what will you apply in your life. Please write it down.
Sure.
Please write it down, all of you. What will you apply in your life? Don't summarize the session because it's been wonderfully done. But what is your commitment? That what is a change that you plan to bring in your life? You all can write that, please. Go ahead. You have to write on the chat, not on your notebook. Okay. Empathy, becoming voracious reader, starting my teaching with empathy to become a good listener, creating interest. Creativity buck stops at the teacher. Absolutely. Empathy, listening, communicating, rasa. Creativity, teaching. Minimum information on slides with maximum oral explanation. Critical evaluation, critical listening. Be curious. Very nice. Breaking the puzzle, breaking the pattern. Rasa, creativity, knowledge, intelligence. Widen the horizon. Yes, more on us. Very good. Holding the attention, 5 exercises. Building creative skills in children. Breaking patterns, continual learning, building creativity skills in children. Very good. Make students better. Break pattern. Keep clean slides, use images, practical applications, focus on depth. And I'm sure you are not just summarizing it for all of us, but you will be also internalizing some of these things in your own practices going forward. That's my humble request. Revision, very important, Neha. Revision and summary. Making and breaking patterns. Lovely. This is quite overwhelming for the amount of time that we had spent with each other. I'm very happy. All right, this is good. Teaching with curiosity, inspire students, summaries and revision. Lovely. Okay, Nupur, over to you, I guess.
I'd like to hand it over to our Dean, Dr. Bindu Nabiar. So she would give you the vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Extremely satisfying today for me to deliver this vote of thanks as we come to the end of this session, something that we've been eagerly looking forward to. And I think I have told Pawan time and again how much we are keen to listen to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I think this is one of the sessions. We have hosted a couple of webinar series. We've had many speakers. We've done many sessions. But I think this is one session where the chat box has been most live throughout the session. So very, very interactive. And I'm sure that each and every faculty member would have very specific takeaways. And I totally understand how difficult that is, considering that, you know, every faculty is looking for ways to improvise. So, you know, it's really hard for you to bring in content which we have not seen before, heard before, and then make us internalize that. Okay. Excellent session by, I mean, it was expected that Dr. Pavan Soni's session would be very, very interesting, but you've kind of overwhelmed us with your session. It's really nice. Thank you so much, Dr. Pavan Soni, for being with us today. I'm especially thankful to you as the founder of Inflection Point. It's nice that you did not take up a corporate career and, you know, not go that way. You're there with us to spread thoughts and ideas. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. From the deepest of our hearts, all of us are grateful and thankful for your presence today. I would like to thank the management of Gokula Education Foundation, our Chief Executive, Shri B.S. Ramaprasad, our Chief of Finance, Shri G. Ramachandra, who have been such pillars of support and guidance to us. And it is their constant motivation that that actually is the backbone of this program today. It was them who said that, who agreed that it was very imperative for all of us to go through a session like this, where we need to update and prepare ourselves to get more engaging on the online platform. So I thank all of them for their constant support, guidance, and motivation. Our thanks to our principal, Dr. A. Nagaratna, our vice principal, Shri B.S. Jairam, our manager finance, Shri Hanumant Reddy, heads of all our sister institutions who have both graced the occasion and also deputed their faculty to participate, heads of all the departments, my colleagues here in RCASC, each and every one of them, my faculty team here, all the faculty members who are today participating for the program, and all the faculty members at RCASC. The teaching, non-teaching staff at the department who have put in considerable efforts to make this event a possibility. Each and every member of my team, I don't think it is right for me to take everybody's name, but my entire team for you know, doing their roles beautifully well, because of which this event became such a beautiful session today, and everything went on very smoothly. Of course, I would kind of be incomplete if I did not mention Dr. Chakrapani Gopal, who actually brought you into the picture. You know, who's our connecting point. So I think I should never forget the bridge that I walked on. So my colleague, Dr. Chakrapani Gopal, thanks a lot for networking and being with us. Thanks to each and every participant who's made the time today and made this event a grand possibility. So it was really nice to have all of you together. Thank you so much. And we definitely do look forward to meeting you more, Dr. Soni. Thank you very much.
Same here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. All the best to all of you guys.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Right. Bye.
Bye.